My sister used my own money to fly to my city, slept with the man I was dating, and when I confronted her, she looked me in the eye and told me it was my fault for introducing them. 9 years passed without a single apology, a single acknowledgement, or a single moment of accountability. Now she is engaged to a youth pastor, my mother is planning bridal showers, and somehow I am still the one being called cold and distant. What nobody in my family knows is that my sister was carrying another man's secret pregnancy the entire time she was under my roof doing this to me. And now I have to decide whether to walk into that bridal shower and smile like I do not know exactly who she is. There is something particularly painful about being betrayed by someone who used your own generosity to do it. I have been independent since I was 18 years old. My mother made that decision for me, not something I walked into willingly or with a plan. One day I was a teenager with a home, and the next I was figuring out how to exist in the world entirely on my own. It shaped me in ways I am still unpacking, but the most lasting effect is probably this. I never learned to expect much from my family, which made the moments I chose to invest in them feel heavier than they probably should have. My sister and I were close for a while. She is 3 years younger than me, and in the way younger siblings sometimes do, she had managed to stay more connected to the warmth of our mother's household, even when that household had shown me the door. I did not hold it against her. That is not how I am built. Instead, I kept a relationship with her that was separate from everything else, something that felt like mine, like proof that family could mean something even when the structure of it had let me down. 9 years ago, I decided to do something nice for her. She had been going through a rough stretch, nothing dramatic, just the kind of low-grade exhaustion that comes from being in your mid-20s and feeling like nothing is moving. I had a bit of extra money saved, I had an apartment I was proud of, and I thought it would be good for both of us to spend some time together. So I bought her a plane ticket. I planned the visit. I stocked the refrigerator and made a list of things we could do while she was in town. I was also seeing someone at the time. It was not a long-term, deeply serious relationship, but it was real. He was kind, attentive, and we had been spending a good amount of time together. When my sister arrived, I introduced them the way you naturally introduce people in your life, briefly, casually, the kind of introduction that is more courtesy than ceremony. He came over one evening while she was staying with me. We all had dinner together. That was it, or so I thought. I do not remember exactly when I started noticing that something felt off. It was not one single moment, but a collection of small things. The way the energy shifted when the two of them were in the same room, the way certain conversations seemed to have a layer underneath them that I could not quite access. I told myself I was being paranoid. I trusted my sister. I trusted him. I had given them both my openness and my home, and I did not think that warranted suspicion. I was wrong about that. I found out what happened before she left. I do not need to go into every detail of how the discovery unfolded because the facts are simple, and the specifics do not soften them. My sister, a guest in my home on a trip I had paid for, slept with the man I was seeing. In my space, while I was trusting both of them completely. When I confronted her, I was not screaming. I was not theatrical about it. I was hurt, and I wanted her to tell me she understood that she was sorry, that she recognized what she had done. What I got instead was the opposite of that. She looked at me with a composure that still bothers me to think about, and told me that I should not have introduced them if I did not want this to happen. I could not speak for a moment. I genuinely could not locate a response to that. She was not apologizing. She was not explaining herself in a way that reached toward me at all. She was rewriting the situation so that my own openness, my own hospitality, my own trust in her was the source of the problem. Not her actions, mine. She went home shortly after. I did not call my mother. I did not call anyone. I just sat in my apartment and absorbed the reality that the person I had invested in the most, out of everyone in my family, had just done this to me and had not blinked. I learned something later that added a layer to this story that I still struggle to make sense of. My sister had been pregnant when she came to visit me. Not visibly, not in a way that announced itself, but pregnant nonetheless. And she had told no one. Not me, not my mother, not any mutual friend or family member. She was carrying an entire secret, and she had brought it with her into my home. The man she slept with during that visit was not connected to the pregnancy. My ex is not the father of her child and never was. The identity of her child's biological father is something that has remained unclear over the years, at least to me. Those are simply separate realities that happen to be occurring simultaneously. But the reason this detail matters to me, and the reason I keep coming back to it, is that it adds a dimension to who my sister was in that moment. She was not a 27-year-old having a careless fling without thinking about consequences. She was a person already carrying a significant secret, already navigating something serious and hidden, and she still made the choice she made, in my space, at my expense. And then she told me it was my fault. I have turned this over in my mind more times than I can count. I am not sure what conclusion I am supposed to reach. I only know that the combination of those facts, the secret pregnancy, the betrayal, the refusal to apologize, paints a picture of someone who was, in that period of her life, making choices from a place I do not fully understand and had no interest in explaining to me. Her son is now 8 years old. He is the only part of this that genuinely softens something in my chest. He did not choose any of this. He is a child who happens to be my nephew, and there are moments at family gatherings when I look at him and feel something simple and uncomplicated that I do not feel anywhere else in that family dynamic. If I am being honest, he is the primary reason I have maintained any presence at all. Not my mother, not my sister, him. Here is what the last 9 years have looked like from the outside. 2 sisters who used to be close and then slowly drifted apart. A woman, me, who moved away, built an independent life, and gradually became less and less available to her family. Someone who shows up to holidays and keeps things polite but never quite lets anyone in. Someone her mother quietly worries about and probably describes to others as closed off. That is the version of me that exists in my family's understanding of this situation. What they do not know is that I did not drift, I made a decision. A slow, quiet, utterly reasonable decision to stop investing in a relationship that had shown me exactly what it was worth. My sister never brought it up again after that confrontation. Not once. Not at Thanksgiving, not at Christmas, not in a text, not in any private moment we might have had over nearly a decade of continued family contact. She went on with her life and acted, as far as I could tell, as though nothing had happened, as though she had not looked me in the eye and told me that my trust in her was the problem. I matched her energy. I did not tell my mother. I did not tell anyone. I showed up to the gatherings that felt unavoidable, and I kept things surface level, and I tried not to carry it too visibly. But the distance between my sister and me is not a mystery to be solved, or a wound that time healed into ambiguity. It is a direct and logical consequence of something she did and never acknowledged. My mother has blamed me for the state of our family dynamic for years, not loudly or aggressively, but in the way mothers do, through worried questions, through comments about how it would be nice if I came around more, through the implication that the coldness in the family traces back to me, and my independence and my tendency to hold people at arm's length. She does not know the truth, and for 9 years I have let her not know it. I have swallowed the version of myself she has constructed, and I have not corrected it. I am not entirely sure why. Part of it was protection. Protecting myself from being told to get over it, to forgive, to move forward for the sake of family unity. Part of it was something older and harder to name, some resignation about what is possible with this particular family. I stopped expecting to be seen accurately a long time ago. It is easier and less painful that way. But there is a cost to that choice. The cost is that I have been the problem for 9 years in a story where I was the one who was wronged. My sister is getting married in October. She is marrying a youth pastor. I do not know him well. We have exchanged pleasantries at the handful of family events where he has been present, and he seems genuine enough, earnest, engaged, the kind of person who finds meaning in community and structures his life around it. I have no feelings about him personally. What I have feelings about is the ceremonial expectation that is now descending on me because of this engagement. My mother, who does not know why her daughters are not close, is organizing. That is the only word for what she is doing. There is a bridal shower. There are pre-wedding events. There is a general current of celebration moving through my family right now, a kind of collective leaning in that I am being expected to join. My mother has reached out to ask about my availability, my plans, my willingness to be present for these events, and the energy behind those questions is not really asking. It is assuming. I live roughly 2 hours away. This is not an accident. I have built a life at a distance that is close enough to maintain the relationships I want to maintain, and far enough to maintain the ones I do not. My family has a pattern, one I recognized a long time ago and have never quite known how to name without sounding petty, of expecting me to make the drive. Always me driving toward them, never them driving toward me. Literally, the emotional parallel is not subtle. I have told myself I will go to the wedding. That feels like the line I am willing to hold for myself. Whatever complicated feelings I carry about my sister, she is still my sister, and her wedding is a significant event. And I can sit in a room and witness it without pretending to feel things I do not feel. That seems manageable, that seems honest. The bridal shower does not feel the same. A bridal shower is not a witnessing. It is a celebrating. It asks me to perform a kind of joy and affection that I genuinely do not have access to right now when it comes to my sister. It asks me to gather around her and pour warmth onto her and act as though the relationship we have is the relationship that appears on the surface, which is a cordial and pleasant one. And I cannot do that authentically. I do not know how to do that without becoming someone I am not for the afternoon. The question I keep coming back to is whether that matters. Whether authenticity is even a relevant concept when it comes to family obligations. Whether I owe her the performance even if I cannot offer the reality beneath it. The first question is the simplest one on the surface and the most complicated in practice. Do I go to the bridal shower and the pre-wedding events? I know what I want the answer to be. I want someone to tell me that it is acceptable, even reasonable, to attend the wedding and skip the rest. That I am not a monster for drawing that line. That there is a version of showing up that honors the minimal relationship we actually have without requiring me to perform a closeness that does not exist. I want the math to work out so that attending the wedding satisfies whatever family obligation I might genuinely owe and excuses me from everything else. But I also know my mother will not understand it that way. To her, skipping the bridal shower is a statement. It is the difficult sister being difficult again, pulling back, making everything about herself, refusing to be a part of something that should be a shared joy. She will not have the context to interpret it otherwise, and unless I give her that context, she never will. Which brings me to the second question. Do I finally tell my mother the truth? There is a part of me, a significant part, if I am being honest, that is exhausted by the version of me that exists in my family's story. The cold one. The distant one. The one who moved away and stopped coming back and probably has some issue with closeness that has nothing to do with anyone else. I have carried that characterization for 9 years because telling the truth felt more dangerous than absorbing the misread. I was afraid of being dismissed. I was afraid of being told to let it go and come to the table and act like family. I was afraid that telling the truth would cost me more than swallowing it had. But something about the wedding has shifted that calculation for me. Watching my family organize itself into celebration around a person who has never once acknowledged what she did to me, and watching myself be expected to participate, has made the swallowing feel less manageable than it used to. I am not sure what telling my mother would accomplish. She might respond with empathy. She might respond with the exact dismissal I feared. She might land somewhere in between, which in some ways would be the most exhausting outcome of all. A partial acknowledgement that still somehow becomes about family unity and forgiveness, rather than about the simple fact that I was wronged and never received an apology. The third question is the most personal one. Should I try to have a direct conversation with my sister before the wedding? My honest answer is that I do not know what I would want from that conversation. Not an apology at this point, or at least not only that. It is too late for an apology to land the way it might have 9 years ago. What I think I want is acknowledgement. Some sign that she is aware of what she did, that it registers somewhere in her understanding of who she has been to me. And I want it because of my nephew, not because of her. He is 8 years old, and he is not responsible for any of this, and I would like to have a real relationship with him without it requiring me to perform a closeness with his mother that I do not feel. But I also know that approaching my sister now, 9 days before her wedding or even 9 weeks before it, is going to be read as drama. It is going to be framed as me introducing conflict into a happy time. And even if the conversation goes well, even if she hears me and responds with something genuine, I am not sure it changes the fundamental reality, which is that she had 9 years to bring it up and chose not to. I have thought about this from every angle I can access. I have tried to think about it from my sister's perspective, tried to imagine what the last 9 years have felt like to her. Maybe she carries some guilt she has never found a way to express. Maybe she convinced herself over time that enough distance had passed that the conversation was no longer necessary. Maybe she genuinely has rewritten the story in a way where she was less culpable than I know her to have been. I do not know. I cannot know. What I know is my own experience of it. I know that I was generous with her, and she took something from me that was not hers to take. I know that when I asked her to account for it, she refused and turned it back on me. I know that not a single subsequent interaction over 9 years has contained any move toward repair from her side. I know that I have been present at family events, I have been civil, I have been cordial, I have not made scenes or told people what happened or positioned myself as a victim. I have simply been exactly as close to her as the relationship we actually have warrants. And now a wedding is asking me to close the remaining distance and act as though what happened between us did not happen, or does not matter, or is sufficiently in the past that it should no longer inform how I move through our family events. I do not think I owe her that. I think I owe her my presence at her wedding, because she is my sister and her nephew's mother, and because I am an adult who can sit in a room and be present without it being a lie. I think I owe her basic human civility at every event I do attend, because that is who I am and not a gift to her specifically. I think I owe my nephew the clearest path I can create to a relationship with him, which may require some navigation of my feelings about his mother. But I do not think I owe her a bridal shower appearance. I do not think I owe her warmth I do not have. I do not think I owe her a performance of sisterhood that she abandoned 9 years ago in my own home. The hardest part of all of this is not the decision itself. The decision actually feels clear to me, clearer than I expected when I started writing this out. The hardest part is knowing that however I navigate the next several months, my mother will likely interpret it through the lens she already has. The one where I am the difficult daughter. The one who pulled away. The one who never quite let anyone in. And unless I change that narrative, that is the version that will outlast this wedding and every event that follows it. I do not know yet whether I am ready to change it. I do not know if the cost of telling the truth is lower than the cost of continuing to be misread. What I do know is that I am 33 years old. I have been carrying this quietly for nearly a decade, and I am genuinely unsure how much longer that silence is something I chose versus something that has simply become the shape of me by default. I am going to the wedding. That much is settled in my mind. I am probably not going to the bridal shower. Not because I want to make a statement, but because I cannot make myself perform something I do not feel, and attempting to do so would cost me more than the alternative. I am going to think more carefully about the conversation with my mother, not because I want to blow anything up or relitigate something that is nearly a decade old, but because I am tired of being the problem in a story I did not create. She deserves to know the truth at some point. Whether that point is before this wedding or after it, whether it is a careful conversation or a reluctant one, I have not decided. But the decision to keep protecting a narrative that misrepresents me is starting to feel less like grace and more like self-abandonment. The conversation with my sister feels like the last thing to figure out, and probably the most fraught. I do not have hope for it in the way I might have once. I am not approaching it with the expectation of repair or transformation. What I am approaching it with is a quiet, honest assessment of what is actually possible, which might be very little, and a willingness to try anyway for the sake of the small person in our family who did not choose any of this and who deserves the best version of whatever his aunt can offer. My nephew asked me at the last family gathering whether I was going to come to his mom's wedding. He asked it the way 8-year-olds ask things, directly, without subtext, just wanting to know the answer. I told him yes, I meant it. I am going to walk into that building and sit in that room and watch my sister marry a man who, as far as I know, is a decent person who has no idea what he is inheriting. And I am going to do it for the kid who asked me. Not for my mother, who has spent years quietly blaming me for a distance I did not create. Not for my sister, who has spent 9 years acting as though nothing happened. Not for the family unity that has always been a performance more than a reality. For my nephew, because he is 8 years old and none of this is his fault and he loves his aunt and I love him back, and some things are genuinely that simple. Everything else, the shower, the truth, the conversation, the 9 years, I will figure out one piece at a time.